So we have some breaking news. Khanna and Bernie Sanders have joined together to put forward legislation that would block any unilateral efforts by Donald Trump to attack Iran. That's the basic thrust of this legislation, and it's all in the context of what happened last night, where Donald Trump used his unilateral power as president to attack Iranian General Soleimani, and in so doing, potentially set off a very severe conflict which could destabilize not only Iran and not only Iraq, but the entire Middle East. And what a lot of people have been saying is that Donald Trump's actions, because they are in effect an act of war, are basically unconstitutional, because the right to declare war, the right to undertake actions which are warlike, rests solely within the Congress. The president cannot declare war. That belongs to the House and Senate. They ultimately have that power. The president has a lot of discretion day to day in terms of how the United States operates in terms of its foreign policy decisions and implementations. But when it comes to the declaration of war, and when it comes to clear acts of war, that power, as per the Constitution, is very clearly not with the president, but with the senators and the House of Representatives. Full stop. And so what Khanna and Sanders are trying to do here is take that power back. For too long, American presidents have been able to do things which are quasi-warlike in nature, but without making a formal declaration, they sort of just get to do things without requisite congressional, senatorial oversight. And that's a big issue, because no one man or no one woman should have all of that power to declare war and to undertake such acts. That really does need to be disseminated throughout the hundreds of congressional and senatorial figures who can have real debate and bring the perspectives of Americans from all over the country, from all sorts of walks of life. And you don't have that when the president goes it alone. And it's also important to note here some of the narratives from Khanna and Sanders. One crucial one is that this is not an optimal use of American resources. At the end of the day, America spends a ton on its military, and often towards ends that are destructive rather than constructive. And anything Trump would do vis-a-vis Iran would certainly be more destructive than constructive. And Bernie Sanders and Khanna note that that money could be used for such better purposes to improve the lives of every American here at home with healthcare, infrastructure, education, and on and on and on. And I think that it's important that while this doesn't just be seen as a money issue, because this is fundamentally an issue of basic human life and dignity, that, Congress have the ability to have real discussions about how on financial issues and moral issues, this may or may not be the right thing to do. And finally, I think it's really crucial to see that for both Khanna and Sanders, the element here of social justice cannot be hidden. Fundamentally, the risks and responsibilities and pains of war are not equitably shared by the American population or by the Iranian population. The people who make the decisions, the companies that profit, the people who build legacies and careers off of these decisions are not the same people that put their bodies, put their lives, put their families, put their communities, put their futures on the line. It's as simple as that. Bernie Sanders notes in his press release announcing this legislation that at the end of the day, it is working class families and working class people, and not billionaires and the children of billionaires, who will fundamentally suffer from this decision. Whether it's the people directly going to fight in a potential conflict in the Middle East, or whether it's the fact that resources allocated towards this quagmire could have been better spent on programs to help people back home. Billionaires will win either way. Billionaires will be fine either way. Billionaires might profit off this war either way. At the end of the day, working class people are often going to be the ones that struggle. And it's important to close on this fact. Bernie Sanders, Khanna, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they're open progressives that don't support Donald Trump's actions in this instance. There are many people who do. I've made my stance clear on this YouTube channel that I think this was a bad move. But even if you support what happened, even if you feel a bad man got justice and that Iran is a force of danger in the region and around the world and something needs to be done, this isn't the way to do it. At the end of the day, if Congress wants to authorize action, that's the way to do it. Congress needs to take its power back. So whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, whether you support the spirit of what Trump did or do not support it, I think it's time for a bipartisan agreement that insofar as you would ever declare war, insofar as you would ever commit acts of war, that power should rest with the Congress. And for the Republican members of Congress that supported Donald Trump's actions, they should be able to declare that support in Congress in a formal declaration. Because here's the thing, I fundamentally agree with those who say that in attacking a general, a high-ranking general, the second most important political figure in Iran, you're effectively declaring war. And that's not a power the president should have on its own. So my hope is that while Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna are approaching this from a position that's critical not only of procedural but of moral decisions here, that anyone who feels that the power of declaration belongs with the senators and the Congress and not unilaterally with the president, they need to support this legislation. Because you might support this action this time by this president. But what if it's another president, another time, doing something you don't like, right? At the end of the day, you want to have that power disseminated. And I think that's a prudent decision. And I hope that Republicans and Democrats join with Sanders and Khanna in making that happen and putting real constraints on Donald Trump's rash unilateral power.